Good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives, going live on YouTube tonight. One of the things that we're noticing right now, if you're paying attention to the news, paying attention to politics as it were, folks are trying now to repeal the ACA. We all know the ACA is just a terrible bill. It never was a good bill. It was just an awful bill. It was never health care. It was always just a band-aid. It was always something for somebody to say, hey, look. Reality is it was a handout to the insurance companies, okay? The United States government has always been able to afford whatever it wanted to afford up to the point of utilizing our real resources. We are never going to run out of pieces of paper. It's ridiculous to believe so. These pieces of papers are what we call unit of account, the US dollar. The US dollar, regardless of what any of the Fed-ish-ers are saying, is a construct of the United States government because the Fed is, in fact, a construct of Congress. So what we've got is a situation now where we've allowed people to lie so much, so often. Our politicians, our media, you name it. Every single one of these people lie to us. And then what do? We as people sit back and we say to ourselves, well, our heroes told us that we're broke. Our heroes told us that we've got to raise taxes to pay for stuff. Our heroes told us that we've got to do all these things. Now, unfortunately, and this is a very, very big deal, okay? Unfortunately, most people don't have the time to invest to learn this stuff. So they repeat what Bernie Sanders says. They repeat what Jill Stein says. They repeat what all of these individuals say. And the thing is that the reason why the Bernie Sanders of the world and the Jill Steins of the world say these ridiculously stupid things, like that we've got to pay our fair share for Medicare for all. We got to pay into Social Security. We got to pay into this stuff. Remember, a government that creates its own currency does not require an income, right? It doesn't require an income. But here we are. We sit there and we tell them this stuff. And so now we're at this precipice. We're at this point right now where we're going to watch the ACA probably get repealed. And if it does somehow or another survive, its only saving grace is the fact that it keeps pre-existing conditions from being ripped away. And the fact is that there are some people out there who do get reduced rate insurance. It's not the same thing as healthcare, is it? So I'm going to be going to Washington, D.C. on the 24th. It's a Monday, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. I'll be on the steps of the Capitol with Ro Khanna and John Conyers talking about this Medicare for All bill. Now, I just want to be clear with everybody. I support this bill because it's the only bill. It is literally the only bill that we have available out there right now for us to be able to get behind. Because there is not a single senator, there is not a single congressman with the cojones, with the smarts, with the willingness to go ahead and tell the truth that we don't need to pay for the Medicare for All, that our government can fully fund it without any issues whatsoever. So as you watch Trumpers and you watch folks like these Trumpers that really believe that you lazy bastards are getting over and you're getting moocher-free stuff and all this other crap that goes through their Rush Limbaugh logic, as you sit there and listen to them say these things, and then you look over here in the progressive community and they're filling that narrative over and over again with the nonsense of how much we've got to pay into, how we got to tax the rich to afford things. As you look at that, you realize that we are repeatedly setting ourselves up for a failure. Not only is it a lie, but it's bad politics. It may resound with people that don't know any better because we've all been conditioned to think of economics like a household income, like a household budget. But the reality is the federal government isn't like a household budget. The federal government is a currency issuing entity. It is monetarily sovereign. It creates its own currency. It throws it out there when Congress spends. Or, in the case of our government Our Congress stopped spending, so what have we had to do to keep our economy going? We've all had to go into private debt. We've absorbed huge blows, and none of us are monetarily sovereign. We each are strapped and held tight to that, okay? So what ends up happening? Ultimately, what ends up happening is we set the stage to prove to Republicans that Democrats are just as dumb as they said they were. And we also set the stage to show that progressives haven't learned anything about economics, not nearly enough to actually affect the kind of change that a robust progressive agenda would provide. Think about this for a minute. Bernie Sanders offered up $33 trillion in new spending. Jill Stein went even further than that. She wanted to quantitatively ease, which we all know is really, really farcical economics, with all due respect to Jill. It is absolutely farcical, okay? But she wanted to do away with student loans, which is phenomenal. She wanted to eradicate student debt, which is just incredible. But she wanted to do it economically illiterately. And so here we go. We've got a situation where we keep perpetuating these lies and myths. So guess what? We always think small. We always think small ball. We never allow ourselves to win and win big, right? A robust, a huge New Deal all at once to go bam and watch the world come afire. Watch the incredible progressive agenda come to fruition and watch us survive and thrive for maybe the first time ever. But sadly, and very sadly, this is the way it goes. Very, very sadly. Too many of us sit there and just say whatever the person on TV said. If the person on TV said we need to go ahead and spend, we need to tax, we need to do this or that, then they're going to look at you like you got 7 heads when you tell them that taxes don't fund spending. And then they're going to try and say, well, how is this even relevant to my life? Why does MMT or any of this other stuff you talk about, Steve, why does any of it matter? Why? And you ask yourself that question, and it should become readily apparent. But there are some who it's not so apparent to. So let me fill the void for those people. The Republican Party will not raise taxes, period. So if you're going in there believing, it's a lie anyway, but if you go in there believing that we got to raise taxes to pay for it, you know that all they're doing is marching in place. You know they're marching in place, pumping their fists, fist in the air, and all that stuff. And then, as soon as the inevitable happens, which is the bill doesn't get passed, nothing good happens, then what you see is the inevitable, but the Republicans blocked it. They wouldn't let us raise taxes to pay for stuff. So all of a sudden you've got this self-perpetuating cycle of failure. In other words, they're running around with a ginormous L on their forehead because they have no intention whatsoever of actually winning. They think that if they keep fighting this tax war, that somehow or another they'll keep attracting people and they can hate on the other guy. I don't really care who wins. I care that we win. I want to see a massive, massive blow up the world kind of incredible progressive agenda come to fruition. But you look across at the media personalities. You look across at our alternative progressive media personalities. And they are saying all the easy, low-hanging, non-economically literate bullshit that the GOP says. They're saying all the stupid shit that Hillary said. They're literally saying the same exact shit that Hillary says. Do you realize our progressive movement is no better than Hillary when it comes to economics, because they sit there and they say, well, we got to raise taxes to pay for things. They literally don't get it. Folks, how can you worry about the Republicans when our own troops are fighting the wrong war? How can you help bridge the divide between Republicans when our own progressives are too busy shooting themselves in the junk sack to get anywhere? This is our problem. I can't even look beyond the progressive movement because deep within us, we got people that are telling fairy tales about the Federal Reserve. We got people telling fairy tales about the debt. We got people telling fairy tales about all sorts of other stuff. And we never get past it. We never get past it. And we march in place and we pump our fists and we get nowhere as we march our way right into the sand pits, into the tar pits, and we go extinct. This is the problem with the progressive agenda. The headstones, as Stephanie Kelton said, of the progressive agenda are laid there by the well-meaning people that think that we've got to pluck dollars off billionaires to pay for things. But think about this. If millionaires and billionaires have everything they ever wanted in this life, what is the one thing they desperately want? They want immortality. They want adulation. They want to be seen as heroes. They want to be seen as gods. And how do we do that? We act like we're impotent to do anything without them. We act like we need their precious money. And as Ellis would say, "Oh, dear sir, please perchance give me some porridge." And this is the way the progressive movement has chosen to operate. We have forsaken thinking, and we just repeat the same tired, hopeless, without merit diatribe that never gets us anywhere. It never gets us anywhere. So, as someone who wants this more than anybody I've ever met, I don't know anybody that I've ever seen that wants the New Deal as bad as I do. I need that to change. I want people outpacing me on this. I want people out there talking about it constantly. Because if we don't, this bullshit narrative is going to win the day. And think about this. 2020 comes around. 2018. And the next wave of progressives are put up on the mantle to be worshipped and to be elevated and to be talked about with oh so much reverence. And we're not allowed to bash them, remember? We're not allowed to bash them. So what happens? We get a bunch more people that think they're woke, that think they're progressive, that are still peddling the economic narrative of our oppressors. That, my friends, is why we've got to retain our integrity and hold back our support from candidates that do not get this. And we need to flood their pages. We need to flood their phone lines. And we need to flood every Facebook page and group on the internet and YouTube, everywhere, Twitter. And we need to flood them with truth about modern monetary theory and stop allowing them to lie to us like we're somehow or another broke, like we're somehow or another a peasant country, like somehow or another we need to pluck dollars off rich people so that we can actually win. Give me a break. Give me a break. And then what happens when they start elevating Tulsi Gabbard? Does Tulsi Gabbard still speak economics of the oppressor? Does she still talk about taxes, funding, spending? Does she still act like we've got to find money to pay for things? Does she still think we have to cut spending here to find spending there? If she does, how is she in any way, shape, or form any better? I'm telling you right now, folks, all the rhetoric in the world doesn't mean shit if you can't deliver. If you can't actually deliver, then there is no point in voting for you. Why in the world would I vote for a neoliberal economic policy just because somebody says they're the next progressive? Why in the world would anyone do that? Do you realize that the reason why we have so much wealth inequality in America has got next to nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats, because it's both of them. They are both neoliberal shill parties that have vastly expanded the wealth gap by cutting off public space and pushing us all into private debt, putting all the money into the hands of the wealthy through us, who we've had to leverage our lives by borrowing money. We borrow money. When they cut federal spending, you and I have to borrow money to survive. Folks, student loans are a training, education, and development handout to corporations. We are talking right now, we are talking about having to change a narrative so deeply embedded in people's brains, so deeply embedded in their psychology, that if we don't get out there and maniacally drive this point home, if we are not passionate and we are not actively forcing this down their throats, there will be no progressive agenda. No matter how much they say, they can propose bill after bill after bill. But number one, you already know Republicans are not voting for these tax hikes. There's no reason for them anyway. So score one for the rubes. Score one for the rubes. They get that part. Score one for everybody else who wants to have single payer. But then fix the fucking economic narrative. Fix the economic narrative. And you know what? Here's the thing. This is what's beautiful about modern monetary theory. There is tons and tons and tons of peer-reviewed literature. Instead of pointing at yourself as the expert, and I'm not the expert, I always point to the others. You've got Dr. Stephanie Kelton, Bernie Sanders' chief economist and senior fellow at the Sanders Institute. You have got Dr. Bill Mitchell. You have got Dr. L. Randall Wray. You have got Dr. Scott Fulweiler. You have got Dr. Matt Forstater. You have got Dr. Fidel Kaboob. You have got so many people that you can line up one by one by one. And then you've got the Modern Money Network with Rohan Gray, Nathan Tankus, Raul Carrillo. You've got Tim Fong. You've got others there. You've got Pavlina Cherneva, Dr. Pavlina Cherneva of Bard College. You've got so many people. Jan Kriegel, Perry Merling. There's so many. You don't have to own that as the expert. You can point to them, but you got to have your links ready. You've got to have your good screenshots ready, and you've got to follow them on Twitter so you actually have good quality sources there, right there at your disposal to crush the naysayers. Because sadly, this is such a cacophony that needs to occur. It needs to be like a full frontal assault, okay? And the problem is that people are so steeped in the old logic, the old message, the old tax and spend, tired liberal bullshit from the 70s. We need a new left. We need a labor left. We need to unite the 99% under an economic message. If we don't do that, if we allow ourselves to get trapped into these little orphanages, these political orphanages, if we allow ourselves to get sidelined by this, and we don't break out the pitchforks and torches and go occupy their offices and go occupy Congress and go occupy the streets and the town halls and every single news media outlet and constantly do it, drive it, bam, 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 then we lose. And then we lose bigly because the other side has the Peterson Foundation. They've got both the Democrats and Republicans preaching this horrible nonsense. Everybody has a twist that screws this up. So it's best to block the political parties, block your heroes, block all this bullshit, and recognize the fact that we can never run out of keystrokes unless the guy who enters them broke his fingers off. And then he could use his nose, or his tongue, or his elbows, whatever, or a pencil, or a freaking lighter, bam, bam, bam. Bottom line, we can never run out of keystrokes. And the pieces of paper, BFD, we can't run out of them either. What we can run out of is real resources to make those dollars worth something, okay? And when people look at you like you're crazy, just remember this. Taxes are what give our dollar its value, because you can't pay your taxes in chicken necks, frog legs, gold bullion, or barrels of oil. You can only pay your taxes in US dollars, and they are deleted upon receipt. The birth of a dollar is congressional spending. The death of a dollar is taxation. The more you know, the more you've got that you can actually take to the streets and enlighten people and bring them to a point of understanding. Because if they don't have the understanding, they can't activate, they can't do anything, and they will look at you like you're crazy. So I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. I'm going to try and do more on YouTube here going forward. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the broadcast. I'll talk to you later. I'll be on Facebook a little bit later. Join us at Real Progressives. Thanks. Have a great night, everybody.